Good morning, everybody. Today, we're actually going to be looking at fire and smoke. It's a critical part of the ICAO exam system. It doesn't matter which exam you're taking. What we're going to be looking at today is how we respond in English to this non-routine situation, and particularly the grammar that we need to know. One thing you see here on the first slide are the words fire can spread if not contained and engulf an aircraft. So the first word that we need to make a note of today is the word engulf. You'll also find in the PDF workbook that we sent you along with the class a whole vocabulary list for fire. As I have said before in class, it's easy to read, but what you need to know is how does the word sound, so when you listen to it, you can actually understand it. So let's take that forward right now. What I'd like to do is show you a video that gives you an idea of how fire can spread quickly and engulf. Here we go.
Amid growing confusion in the cockpit, the pilots of Flight 2120 still don't know that there's smoke in the cabin.
All they're dealing with is just all the alarm bells going off to indicate that equipment is failing left, right, and center.
But mechanic Jean-Paul Philippe realizes they're in serious trouble. An onboard fire has the potential to consume the entire aircraft in seconds.
So things are rapidly spinning out of control.
Okay, let's get squared away and see what we've got here, please.
In the cabin, it's becoming almost impossible to breathe. And Jeddah is still 11 miles away.
You've lost all hydraulics.
The odds on making it back to the airport are getting slimmer.
Damn it! I've got no ailerons!
Davidge can't steer the plane with no hydraulics.
Okay, hang on, I've got it.
Captain Allen struggles with his control
Hang
column,
on.
but it too could fail at any moment.
Let's get lined up before things get any worse. Okay, so we're at 2,000 feet now, declaring an emergency. We are having flight control problems.
Roger, I thought you were Saudi 738.
Only now does the controller realize that the troubled aircraft is the Nation Air flight.
Turn left right now, heading
080, expect runway 34 left.
By this time, it's pandemonium inside the cabin. Passengers are being engulfed by flames, and bodies are starting to fall from the aircraft fuselage.
The plane is right over Jeddah, a city of 2 million people.
Bodies were falling out of the aircraft 11 miles from the airport.
Okay, sir, we're having trouble turning. We are having flight control problems. We will try to turn left. We are having flight control problems.
In the situation, it would have made certainly controlling the aircraft for an approach and landing very, very difficult.
How much further?
10 miles. 1,700 feet.
Choking for air, some passengers try to open the doors. At this speed, it's impossible.
No!
Jeddah 2120, clear to land runway
34 left.
Okay, we're coming straight in. We'll land on the left. Require emergency vehicles immediately. We have a fire. We will be ground evacuating.
Jeddah 2120, clear to land any runway, clear to land.
There it is, it's 2 miles out!
All right, let's get on the ground. I've lost elevators. Christ, I have no control. Landing gear down.
The fiery explosion and sudden impact with the ground has all but obliterated Flight 2120. "247 passengers and 14 crew members are dead. This is the worst accident ever for a Canadian airline, and the deadliest crash of a DC-8 in history.
So, when we're looking at videos, remember we're using videos so we can understand vocabulary and a situation. Now let's get into more vocabulary that we're going to use in the exam. For example, obviously we know about smoke, but what I've identified to you before in class is that when you hear, for example, thick white smoke, you need to read back all the information. It's no good just saying smoke or white smoke. If you hear the words thick white smoke, that's an indication of intensity, so we need all the information. We smelt smoke on the flight deck and are donning our oxygen masks. There's a typical type of audio you can hear in the exam, all right? We smelt smoke on the flight deck and are donning our oxygen masks. So, as we learned in pressurization, depressurization, the first procedure is to don the oxygen mask. What's the difference between smoke and fumes? Well, obviously, smoke is generalized as the air that comes from a fire, but fumes are vapor that we can smell. So for us, another word that we need to be aware of is the word odor. So typically we can say we can smell a strong odor. Again, all the words are important. One of the typical questions that comes up in an ICAO exam is, what systems do you think are the most important before starting a flight? Again, use the question in the answer. Some of the systems that are important before starting a flight are, for example, the cabin crew giving a safety briefing. That way, in the event of an emergency, the passenger knows what procedures to follow. Obviously, communication will be less clear as the crew will be wearing oxygen masks, and it will be necessary to make an emergency evacuation using the escape slides. Okay, so here we're looking at another word. It's the word when we actually use what we know in Spanish to be the toboggan. How do we refer to it in English? We say the escape slide, or we can say the escape chute. So there's two words there: escape slides, escape chutes. Another question that we might ask is how much time is allowed to evacuate the aircraft? Well, there are regulations under FAA NTSB. You have to evacuate an aircraft in less than 90 seconds. That means an aircraft like this, as you can see on my video, an Airbus 380, okay? You're dealing with over 500 passengers and 8 exit doors, 18. You still have to evacuate this aircraft in less than 90 seconds. And as we saw in the video that we looked at yesterday, we got problems because passengers like to take their bags, block things, and don't follow instructions. Notice that the Airport Fire and Rescue Services are trained to be at the incident in less than 2 minutes. But it's important for us that we can evacuate in less than 90 seconds. And there's that word emergency chutes. So we got escape slides or emergency chutes. Now, depending which exam you're doing, for example, both the LPAC Eurocontrol and the TEA use pictures. And they give you a picture and they say, describe what is happening in this picture. So obviously, if I'm making a picture description, I need to be able to decide this looks to me like an emergency. The passengers are being evacuated using the escape slide chutes. I can see that there is a slide chute in forward and also at the aft door. And there are people assisting the people evacuating. I presume emergency fire and rescue and ambulance will also be in attendance. When we're looking at audios, all right, and what I'd like to do here is just, without playing the audio, all right, is actually look at what we need to know in terms of words. When we're looking at audios, for example, the flight deck is full of smoke. We can't see clearly. These audios we will play for you live when we use technique. Right now, we need to understand the vocabulary. Flight deck is full of smoke. We can't see clearly. Let me go back there. We had a fire in the rear toilet. Request an emergency landing. Notice my emphasis is in the red. Which toilet? The rear toilet. So if you're reading back and you say we had a fire in the toilet, you're incorrect. I need the location if you hear it, and also what do you want? They're requesting an emergency landing. We suspect fire in the cargo cabin. We are aborting takeoff. Fire and smoke of unknown origin. We are making an emergency descent. So origin, I'm not just talking about where, I'm using the word here unknown, unknown. I might also say, for example, unknown traffic is ahead of us. We suspect a fire in the cargo compartment. We'll check and inform you. We have fire and smoke, and here's that word again. It's popular in this exam. We have fire and smoke of unknown origin. Can you vector us to the nearest airport? There's a fire close to the airport. Where is it? It's close to the airport. And what is happening? A lot of dark smoke in the skies. Where? Around. So we have fire close and in the skies around. We had a fire in our left engine, but put it out. We'll proceed to our original destination. Many times when people from our experience are responding to an audio like this, they say we had a fire in the left engine, we'll go to the original. What they omit is they put out the fire, which is another word of saying extinguished the fire. We have a chemical fire. What type of fire? A chemical fire. Where? Cargo hold. What do you want? Request emergency landing. We have received your distress signal. Now remember, in the previous class, I identified the word Mayday, Mayday, Mayday is a distress signal. So here the audio is, we have received your distress signal. You're cleared to land on runway 3. Remembering, Mayday comes from the French Mayday, which means help me. So a distress signal is Mayday, 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 or pan, 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 pan. The types of questions that you can be asked, for example, in the TEA, and also in the ELS, and also in the LPAC, is how dangerous is fire in aviation? You need to talk for a minute. What do you think is the most common cause of fire on board planes? Careful. This is not about the engine. This is about fire on board. There's a difference. What do you think are the main causes of electrical faults? Why are hidden fires so dangerous on aircraft? And what are we doing to reduce fires from personal computers on aircraft? So let's try and answer some of those questions. Why is fire on board so dangerous? Fire on board an aircraft is an extremely dangerous hazard. Why? We've got powerful engines and we've got a lot of kerosene fuel. So we're like flying a bomb. Fire outside the cabin, for example, in the cargo hold or the engines, we can manage easily. But what happens when we have something like this, when you have fire on board, time is running against you. Fire can spread quickly and involve the aircraft. In this video, Swissair 111, it took too long to determine that they had a fire, a hidden fire in the attic. The attic is the roof. We're basically between the ceiling and the fuselage. And this is where the fire started on this aircraft.
Swissair 111 is en route from New York to Geneva. The passengers are settling back to enjoy the flight.
Business class and economy class, they would have absolutely no idea that anything was amiss.
As cabin power is cut, some passengers are mildly concerned.
There's no need to worry. We'll be landing very shortly.
But in the cockpit, it's a different story.
I could hear a master warning tone, and I had no idea of what that meant.
The pilot's attempts to control the jumbo are failing.
It's not a jumbo.
Few on board realize they only have minutes to live. Disasters don't just happen. They're triggered by a chain of critical events. Unlock the clues and count down those final seconds from disaster. "21 minutes to disaster. A wire in the attic arcs, igniting metallized mylar. The pilots smell something strange, but think it's an air conditioning problem. 18 minutes to disaster. Seeing smoke, they decide to land and head towards Halifax. 16 minutes to disaster. Air conditioning fans suck the attic fire towards the back of the plane. This clears smoke from the cockpit. 11 minutes to disaster. While looping to lose height, the pilots choose to detour further and dump fuel over the ocean. They don't know what's happening in the attic. Eight minutes to disaster. The captain cuts power to the cabin. This shuts down the air conditioning fans, allowing the inferno to rage directly above the cockpit. 7 minutes to disaster. The blaze destroys the autopilot system, forcing the pilots to fly manually. Only now do they realize the enormity of the problem. Investigators suspect Captain Zimmerman fights the fire, leaving First Officer Lerv to fly the stricken plane. 6 minutes to disaster. The fire disables the flight displays, communications with air traffic control, and the black boxes. In the searing heat, First Officer Lerv struggles to keep control. But the plane is no longer flyable. All 229 passengers and crew are dead.
That's what happens if you let a fire take control quickly, and it goes out of control. Now, we need to focus on a lot of vocabulary here. So when a fire breaks out on board an aircraft, it's your responsibility, yes, your responsibility to manage the situation. You're going to declare an emergency, but there's words that we use in audio that you also need to understand to read back. We're going to use, for example, the word fire brigade, fire tender, AFR, acronym for Airport Fire and Rescue, fire truck, fire engine, foam crash vehicle, has chem fire truck. Your destination does not have fire and rescue services. Divert to your alternate. That's important. As we've mentioned previously, one of the things that we check is the NOTAM. So if we have an emergency, it is no good flying to Pereira if I have a fire on board and the NOTAM says no fire and rescue. That's where we have to be careful. We just talked about this word, foam crash vehicle. So what is a foam crash vehicle? It's this guy. It's basically spraying a layer of foam, espuma. Now, how does that work for us? For example, if we have an aircraft in an emergency, possible hydraulic, as you can see in this aircraft over here, possible hydraulic no nose gear, we are going to put on the ground a foam carpet. Okay, a foam carpet. And that's vocabulary that we need to know. The foam carpet stops ignition and fire. Instead of having metal against cement, you've got metal against espuma. So that's how we need to know foam carpet in vocabulary. Possible causes of fire on board. So in the exam, we say, what are the possible causes of fire? But note here, it's on board the aircraft. So what ideas can we talk about? We can talk about illegal smoking in the lavatories. We can talk about electricity shorting, or notice the pronunciation, short circuit, not circuit, short circuit. Also, we can talk about overloaded circuits, overheating, flammable materials, wood, paper, or fabric, and dangerous goods. Dangerous goods are normally going with hazardous materials, which we abbreviate and say hazmat. Leaking fluid, and there's that word again, undetected smoldering. We'll identify the word smoldering in a few minutes.